Hey guys, before we dive into this episode, I want to mention show sponsor Beekeepers Naturals. Now, you know I've been a fan of this brand for a long time, and every brand that I work with on the show is one that I've handpicked because they represent, a greater service to the world, a greater service to the community, and especially, the majority of women listening to this podcast. And I love Beekeepers Naturals because they offer these great products that are going to help you and help your family battle cold and flu season. Now, their bee propolis is probably my favorite. Propolis is a substance made by bees when they process plant and tree resin, and they use their propolis to protect, fortify, and even sanitize their hives due to its high antimicrobial, antifungal, and antioxidant properties. So you can get the propolis, you can get it in a throat spray, a little vial that you can down. Really anything that you're going to get from Beekeepers Naturals is going to be the highest quality and the most effective natural remedy that you can find on the market. Now, they're in Whole Foods now, but you can also go to beekeepersnaturals.com. That's beekeepersnaturals.com/unstressed to save on anything that you order from the site. This episode is also sponsored by Public Goods. Public Goods is your one-stop shop for everything that you need for home and life. I'm talking about pantry goods, shampoo, soap, hand sanitizer, you name it. Everything that you would ever need is at Public Goods. And they're different because they curate products all under one aesthetic, but it's also environmentally safe, it's sustainable. They really do their homework when they choose a product to put on their site. And again, if you are looking to organize your life and to have good products throughout your home, which I think is something that we all can aim for in 2021, then you're going to want to visit publicgoods.com/unstressed, and you get $15 to put towards your first purchase. That's publicgoods.com/unstressed, and start shopping and see what you can add to your home in 2021. You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you're here, as always. And if this is the first time that you're tuning in, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here and that you found the show. And I think you'll find, as you go through the past episodes, that there's a common theme. There's a common theme of personal growth and development, and an underlying theme of leadership, not just for our children, because primarily most of us are mothers, but also for ourselves. How do we become leaders in our own life? And why would we even want to do that? And I think, at the end of the day, it's because we want to live the most beautiful life that we can create for ourselves. And that's really what it comes down to. That's really what I've learned as I get into my 30s, is that, if you want to have a good life, nothing can come from anyone else. It all starts from within. Happiness and stability and strong mental health, it all has to come from within. That said, it's helpful when we have experts and people out there who have lived certain experiences and they're sharing that. And that's where the show comes in, listening to these amazing guests to help us, to give us the tools to reach that next level. And my guest this week is absolutely in alignment with that ethos. Her name is Olga Mecking. She is a journalist and writer, and her new book, Niksen, Embracing the Dutch Art of Doing Nothing, is all about how we can do nothing and how that's actually incredibly beneficial to our mental health and our creativity and even how we parent. And so that's really what this conversation is about. It's about her discovery of Niksen, her book, what it really entails, and how you can bring a little more nothing into your life. And my favorite part, not feeling guilty about that. I think you're going to love this episode. If you do, please share it with a friend. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That does so much for expanding the reach of the show to more and more women out there in the world. And I hope you enjoy my episode with the amazing Olga Mecking. Well, hello, Olga. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's dive right in. Let's set the stage for the audience. First off, what is Niksen, and why were you inspired to write a book about it?
So Niksen is a Dutch word that literally means doing nothing. And I was so fascinated by when I found out that in Dutch there is one word for something that in English or other languages would require 2, 3, 4, so many words. I'm a bit of a language geek. I speak 5 languages altogether.
Wow.
English my third. And I just thought that it's amazing that there's one word for doing nothing. And Niksen is a pretty cool word because you've probably read about the other wellness trends, and some of them might be really hard to pronounce, but Niksen is pretty straightforward, right? Niksen.
Yeah. Even as I was saying it, though, I was thinking, like, is this right? I'm not sure. It sounds like it would be, but you never know. So were you just always, when you first heard that word and you made the connection, okay, this is what it means. I like this. It's, it's practical. Where did the idea for the book come from? Because I feel like that's, oh, that's a nice thing. But then to actually go through the process of writing a book, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah. And it was very unexpected because it started out with 2 articles that I wrote about Niksen. One was for a quirky wellness magazine called Woolly. And it was a trend piece. So, this is the new trend. This is what it means. This is why it's cool. And then I wrote another article for the New York Times, focusing more on how to do nothing. So more of a service kind of piece. And that one went viral. In a few days, it had maybe 150,000 shares on
Wow.
Facebook and Twitter and all social media. And well, the way it started was that I just saw a Dutch wellness magazine at a supermarket selling organic products. It's one I like going to because their fruit and vegetables I think they're just better than at my regular supermarket. So I go there when I can. And they had this wellness magazine, and I saw this article called Niksen is the New Mindfulness. And I liked 2 things about that article. One was that the Dutch had one word for doing nothing, and the other one was that, like, I was reading lots of those wellness articles, books not so much, but articles, and it felt so, oh, you have to be mindful, you have to be in the moment all the time. And I was very annoyed at that. And I thought, yeah, maybe, Niksen is a wellness trend I could actually follow. So I decided to write about that.
I love that. I love that. And obviously it hit home with all of the readers of that New York Times article. And I think that's how I reached out to you, because I think I read that and I was like you, I was like, oh, okay. Like this is something that I could actually do. And I'm a big proponent of mindfulness. So I love that you touched on that. And you're like, actually, there is another way to rest and restore. Why do you think, though? I mean, obviously we're all craving, some kind of reprieve from the incessant stress of everyday life and politics and motherhood and all of that. Why do you think then it's so hard for us to actually do nothing? Because I know for me, I start immediately feeling guilty.
Yeah, it's very common. I think especially for women and mothers to have this feeling of, okay, nice, I've sat down and I'm gonna do nothing. But no, then you start going through your to-do list, and then you realize how much you have to do, and which automatically turns into how much you haven't done yet.
Yeah.
Which then makes you feel guilty. And then some people say, oh, just don't feel guilty, which is not that easy, because then you start feeling guilty for feeling guilty. It's like a vicious circle.
It is. So take us through. I mean, how do you set the foundation for putting in Niksen as, a practice? Maybe you're not doing it every day. Do you do it every day? And take us through how you incorporate it into your life.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like I often compare it to the way many people do meditation, in which they go into the special room and turn on special music and prepare their minds in a certain way. And then they do it for half an hour, several hours, maybe sometimes. And I thought, in contrast to that, Niksen could be something much simpler. It could be a few minutes here, a few minutes there. It doesn't have to be this one big chunk of time. That's one thing to keep in mind, because I think when people read about doing nothing and then they get stressed by, okay, but I'm so busy, how am I going to do it? And then if they maybe if they realize that it doesn't have to be this big thing that requires tons of time, maybe they will be more willing to try it. Yeah, and if for example, if someone finds it hard to really do nothing, because Niksen isn't, for example, browsing Facebook, it's not watching Netflix, it's literally doing nothing, gazing out of the window, watching the clouds go by. If they find it hard to do nothing, they could start by something that's kind of automatic, like keeps their hands busy, but lets your minds go free. Coloring book for adults are very popular right now. There are Lego blocks for adults who are stressed out, so they kind of start playing with Lego blocks. I like cooking and baking when I'm stressed. And then I have to pay attention to what I'm doing to not cut off my fingers, but it can be quite relaxing.
So you can still technically be doing something, but it's not like you are certainly not just scrolling social media or, vacuuming or something like that. You're kind of just letting your mind go, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's like daydreaming. And also you can, even if you don't do nothing, you can have the Niksen approach to life or to some activities. So for example, my brother runs marathons and he says, and obviously running is not Niksen, but he says, okay, if I'm running because I'm preparing for a marathon, that wouldn't be the Niksen approach, because I'm doing with a purpose in mind and I'm doing it for something. Because one part of the definition of Niksen is to do nothing, to, look out of the window and sit there. But the other part of it is to do nothing without a purpose. So it's not like you can't have a purpose, because that's very hard. But for example, if your purpose is, if he's running because he's training for a marathon, that wouldn't be the Niksen approach. But if he's running because he likes it, he likes the way his body moves, he just likes the feeling of running. That I would say is the Niksen approach.
Okay, I totally understand that. Like, because I think I struggled with it at the beginning, because I'm like you. I'm like, well, you can't not do anything. You're always doing something. Your brain's always going. But I like that explanation of it. It's really almost a methodical approach to a relaxation mode that you're allowing your body to get into. And I know for one, like, you're a busy mom, I'm a busy mom. We especially don't ever seem to let ourselves get into that mode. And I really, really don't count social media, because I feel like when I do that, I'm more spun up than ever, especially in American politics.
Yeah. And also for us, it's work, right? It's work related.
Yes, exactly.
For you as a podcaster, it's work.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to mindfulness, though, like, I am someone who meditates and I find a lot of value out of that. I know you said you really wanted to make a distinction between mindfulness, like meditation or being mindful when you're in your daily life, versus, letting your mind go. Are there brain benefits? Are the brain benefits different? I mean, what are the brain benefits with Niksen as opposed to like a mindfulness practice?
Yeah, good question. And to be honest, like, if I say, meditation or mindfulness may not be for me, but I know so many people who find it helpful. And I'm a big proponent of doing whatever works, whatever makes you feel better. So to talk about the benefits of Niksen, is, for example, that it can make us more productive. I notice that if I keep writing an article and after a while I get tired, and then I start writing nonsense, like stupid sentences, and my English isn't working properly because I'm tired. And I could tell myself to push through it and just finish that thing. But instead, maybe a better idea would be to get up and do something unrelated to the article, like do nothing, read a book, go for a walk, go cook dinner,
Yeah.
That don't engage my brain in this way. And that gives me a chance to for my brain to rest a little. And actually, even if maybe it would take me longer to write that article, it would still be a better article if it would have been if I hadn't taken that break.
Yes. Absolutely. I totally resonate with that too.
Yeah.
And I think like it is so important for, men and women to be able to give themselves that space, and I feel like today life is going by so quickly. And we don't ever allow ourselves to just kind of let our minds wander or color or build with Legos, unless we're on the floor with our kids. But even when I'm doing that, sometimes I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to get up, like when is this 5 minutes going to be over? And I hate that, like to be in a space where you're really fully there and just kind of in a relaxed state, I think is such a gift to yourself, but also to your children.
Yeah. I also think it's important for our kids to kind of see us, reading a book or resting or to kind of teach them the importance of relaxation.
Yeah.
A lot of, teaching our kids the value of hard work, which is also important. But then if they see us, running around from one place to another or from one activity to another, they're going to kind of learn that as well.
Yeah. Has your thoughts on Niksen, has it seeped into your family life? Like, does your husband subscribe to it? Do your kids do it? I guess kids kind of do it naturally.
Many kids do. But for example, my eldest is very, very full of energy, very athletic. So when we talk about this book, she's 11. We talked about this book and she said, no, I can't do nothing. I always be doing something. And she often is like, but then she'd be, if she wants to relax, she'd be coloring, she'd be drawing, she'd be painting, or she'd be kind of, doing cartwheels on the floor or stuff like that. And then my middle daughter is really good at it. I think she's really good at doing nothing.
I love that. And your husband is German, right?
German, yeah.
Does he subscribe to it as well?
Well, he actually in many ways he likes being spontaneous, but he also takes a lot of time to kind of read, or he might not be doing nothing much, but he does. Relaxing is important to him. So he'll be reading or he'll be checking something on the computer. He doesn't check social media at all. So maybe he'd be reading a Wikipedia article or something like that.
That's awesome. So, and you guys are really well traveled. You've lived all over the world. Your children, I was reading, speak several different languages like you. How has, giving them this global exposure to the world helped in having that, that more, I want to say global again, but like that wider mindset of taking the day as it comes and doing what you need to do, but also creating space for things like Niksen?
Yeah, so very good question. And I think this is the moment where I usually say, there are so many articles about how to parent like the Dutch or like the Germans or like the French or like the Danish. I mean, of course, there's a lot parents all over the world can learn from those nations. But really, I think it all comes down to how the system is organized. So, for example, in the Netherlands where we live now, the system is pretty generous. There's parental leave. There, you wouldn't end up homeless if you lose your job, stuff like that. And I think that's like the main thing that makes parents more relaxed, simply because you don't have to stress about money, or maybe not so much as elsewhere.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I never thought about it that way. Like the system that's in place really does set the stage for, how we parent, how we interact with each other. That's incredible.
I think it's because I was reading lots of those, Bringing Up Baby by Pamela Druckerman and all those books.
And she's going to be on the show next.
Oh, really? Wow, that's cool. And those are great, interesting books. And of course, there's a lot to learn from parents in France or Germany or Denmark or the Netherlands. But there's just so much you can do if the system isn't set up that way.
Yeah.
So if, for example, schools don't offer high quality free lunches, then maybe you're going to struggle to teach your kid how to eat properly. Or you're going to put really lots of effort and time and money into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very important to mention.
No, I completely agree with you. And I feel like you're kind of speaking directly to, my American listeners. We've kind of been brought up in this country to you just kind of handle it yourself until you absolutely can't. So to have that other worldview, I think is really important to know, that is out there, that does exist. It doesn't have to be, one way or another. I think that that's really beautiful. Kind of going back to the book, was there anything when you were writing it that you learned that you didn't expect, even when you'd already written the article, when you were actually writing like the meat of the book, did you learn anything new?
Yeah, I did. I talked to so many researchers all over the place, and I think what really stood out to me was the way how we have a special network in our brains called the default mode network that only lights up when we do nothing.
Huh.
There's been studies done in fMRI machines that compared two groups of people, where one group was given a task to do and the other was just told to sit there and enjoy themselves and do anything. And the images from those brains were quite different, and that special network, it actually I think if I remember correctly, it's there in all of us, no matter of gender, age, nationality, and so on. So I actually, because I also saw that in the Western world, we're going to feel guilty for not working. And then I found out that in many other parts of the world, people felt guilty not for not working, but for example, for not socializing, not to going to religious services, for not spending more time with their families. So there's guilt for, not feeling useful in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So universal and human. But I also thought, if this is human, then maybe the desire and the wish to do nothing and to spend more time really daydreaming or spend more time lazing around, that's also universal. That's also human. Almost every language had some sort of expression, a word. Maybe it wasn't always doing nothing, but it was something similar. So in Italian, you would say la dolce far niente, which means sweet doing nothing or doing sweet nothing. In English, English you say doing sweet, sweet nothing, or to lazy around, or lazy Sunday morning. There are lots of expressions showing the positive side of, laziness even, or what we perceive as laziness.
Yeah, I love that you said that, what we perceive as laziness. But I can remember like waking up Sunday mornings, like growing up, like rushing off to church, it being like a stressful thing, like go, go, go. And then when I was an adult, I was like, okay, I'm going to enjoy my Sundays. And just that feeling of like lazing in bed and having some coffee and like just, looking out the window was some of the best time I spent. This was like before I got married, before I had kids, and I lived by myself, and I was just like truly free. And I remember that, just like really cherishing that time. And I knew like it was so temporary, I knew that was going to be fleeting. But I mean, it sounds like, after reading your article and your book, it doesn't have to be.
No, and even with religions, so for example, I have Jewish roots, and in Judaism, there's Shabbat, which is a day where you're not allowed to work.
Mm-hmm.
And in Polish, the word for Sunday, which is our kind of holiday in Catholic, is Niedziela, which means the day where you do nothing.
So it is there. It is there in history. It is in the system back.
So in almost religions, there's this idea of taking one day for rest.
Yes. Well, and thinking back to that neuroplasticity that happens, when you do kind of sit there and enjoy yourself, as you said, like, I wonder what would happen to your brain, how much more productive, how much more creative, how much more empathy, you could exert towards others when you're not feeling like you have to go, go, go and be, you're just really existing from a place of love.
Yeah, and I also think, especially for women that have this kind of constant pressure to be doing something all the time, whether for everyone else, but not for themselves. And I think it's very hard for women to do nothing simply because of those pressures. And we put those pressures on ourselves, but society does too. So when a man sits on the couch and does nothing, then we say, oh, he's resting. He has a hard day at work. He's thinking big thoughts. He's writing, his big novel or something. If a woman did that, I don't think we even have that image in our head of a woman sitting and doing nothing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I mean, I feel that way too. And I put out a TED Talk last year that was all about, moms, it's okay to be selfish. And a lot of people didn't vibe with it, I think, because of that word selfish. But at the core of it, it was like, no, it's not selfish to take care of yourself first, and I think that that's really, it comes through a lot in your work as well. And I have to mention this one article that you wrote that I read, and it like pierced me right in the heart. Like I loved it so much. Can you talk about the inspiration for that piece and where it came from?
Yes, so one part of the inspiration again was my interest in languages, because I found out that a word that means mother in Polish, matka, means a clay vessel for water or dairy products in Hindi, and journey in Finnish. And then later I found out it means bride in Hungarian, and it also means something in Hebrew, but then I've written that article. So that was one. I was so fascinated by this idea that one word that sounds the same, it has so many meanings in other languages. And then when I found out about this meaning in Hindi of a clay vessel, I thought of another essay I've read about this idea of how motherhood should kind of break you, but then put you together and make you better. And I just didn't relate to this idea at all. I just said, no, I shouldn't be breaking. I kind of shouldn't be made different. I left myself the way I was before. And so I wrote about this.
Yeah. I mean, it was so spot on. Like everything you were saying about, I was in this new world, essentially. I didn't really have anything. Like I had read the books and I had prepared, but then you're in it and you're just isolated. And I knew exactly what you were talking about. I mean, it was like you were speaking right to me. And
I moved abroad when my eldest daughter was 6 weeks old. She was tiny. And I found, with moving abroad, that was my third or fourth move by that time.
Wow.
So that becomes easier with, especially I just moved around Europe with the exception of Canada. I spent 4 months in Canada, but otherwise I've just moved around Europe. And of course we had all those different countries, but it's not exactly similar, but I knew what I could expect.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the food was different, the language was different, but it was not totally weird or something.
You're very adaptable. I think that would be hard for most people. So give yourself some more credit there.
Thank you. No, but I found motherhood to be harder than that. I found it actually more of a struggle than moving abroad. And then I was reading about this thing called culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way how if we're going through a big change, we go through stages that are a little bit like grief. Like the grief also comes in stages, and culture shock comes in stages. How it starts with honeymoon period, and then it goes to kind of struggle, and then you kind of get out of it slowly, and it ends with mastery. How you kind of adapted to this new situation. And for me, motherhood was more of a culture shock than this move abroad.
Wow. Yeah.
So very, very different. And actually, I was actually joking that I thought I knew English, and then I became a mom, because so many new words to learn, right? Starting with pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then even after you're reading all those message boards or forums, and then okay, what's CIO and what's AP and what's all this.
Oh, right. Like all the code words too. Yeah.
With everything that you've learned, what is something that you want the audience to remember about our talk about Niksen?
What I would say is, though, like, don't be afraid of doing nothing. Try it and see how much you're comfortable doing it. If not, it doesn't work. It's okay. It's okay if things don't work out for you. It's just normal. And I know people sometimes beat themselves up because they've tried this trend or that trend and it just didn't work for them. So I want to say it's fine if it doesn't work. Try different things and see what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have that grace for yourself. That's so important every single day to do that for yourself. Oh, thank you. So where can everyone find the book? And if they want to connect with you and read more of your stuff, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so the book is out in the US now. You can buy it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and I guess wherever books are sold. I run a Facebook group called the Niksen.
I love it.
Doing nothing. It's fun. Join us if you want. Yeah, otherwise, I'm on Facebook a lot and I share my stuff there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Olga. Thank you for staying up late to speak with us. And again, thank you for putting out this book. It's so important.
Thank you so much.
I want to mention our show sponsor, Beekeepers Naturals. And they have a wide variety of bee products like royal jelly, hemp honey sticks, but I want to talk to you today about their Bee Elixir Brain Fuel. Now, this product comes in these little vials. Don't make the same mistake I did and take the entire vial in one sitting because you will literally be buzzing around like a bee. This thing hacks through brain fog, gives your body and your brain such a boost of energy. I mean, it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. I mean, it was incredible. And it's because it works on your brain as a nootropic, which means it helps elevate the functioning and the processing of your brain. So if you are looking for something to cut through brain fog, to hack productivity, to get deep into the zone, I highly recommend checking out beekeepersnaturals.com and clicking on their Bee Elixir Brain Fuel and use my code UNSTRESSED so you can save.
You've been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful that we got this time together today. And if you love this episode, I would so appreciate it if you would share it out on your social media and make sure to tag us at Motherhood Unstressed. Connect with us at Motherhood Unstressed. I'd love to connect with you and see where the work has gone in the world. And make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss out on an amazing interview with an incredible guest or our weekly guided meditations every Wednesday.